are now 5-5. LeBron had his second lowest point total of the season during that game. However, again, as you just saw, he owned responsibility for the turnover. Stephen A., let's talk about the game in totality. How much blame is actually on LeBron James?
Well, last night wasn't a good game. There's no question about it. And obviously, he's got to share the brunt of the blame. He only had 15 points, finished on 6 of 17 shooting. Not to mention the fact that he had 5 turnovers, 2 in the last 35 seconds. Pivotal on his part. He obviously owns up to it. I don't overblow it because when you're a 2-time champion, regular season games such as this, it really doesn't mean that much to me. Obviously, he could have played better. There was no question he could have played better. He had a bad game last night, plain and simple. And Kawhi Leonard defending him definitely had something to do with that. Let's give credit where credit is due. But to me, what was even more glaring than that was how thoroughly outplayed Kevin Love was by Boris Diaw. Boris Diaw had a big-time game, had 19 points, 7 assists at every pivotal juncture when the ball was in his hands. He did something productive with it, which is what couldn't be said about Kevin Love. Obviously, again, most of the onus would be on LeBron James on this particular night because his mistakes were more glaring than most. But it's just a regular season game. I'm not fazed by that because he's a champion and he's proven what he could do. Kevin Love is somebody that's never been in the playoffs. We're looking to see what he's going to do. We know that he can shoot the basketball, but that seems to be all he's looking to do. And I don't know, Skip Bayless, whether it's his fault or that of the coach, because I look at a guy like David Blatt right now who's got some things to prove, and maybe he will have an incredibly promising and productive future. But he's got, this is his first time coaching in the NBA. I'm talking about for the last 17 minutes or so, you've got some rookie, Joe Harris, on the court, wasn't subbed out of the game. On top of it all, he's sticking Manu Ginobili, the experienced, championship-tested Manu Ginobili. The minute they saw that this kid was on him, it was a foregone conclusion that Manu Ginobili was going to end up scoring a bucket, and that's what he did, getting a pass from Tim Duncan, where he ultimately scored with Joe Harris literally having his back turned. This is unbelievable, but it's the kind of thing that's happened, and it's the kind of thing that makes some of your coaching mistakes glaring as well. But in the end, I would put a lot of this on LeBron James. That's inescapable because he just didn't have a good game.
By the way, Joe Harris has been reported to be ticketed to be in the starting lineup. I like Joe Harris. I loved him at Virginia last year. But I do agree with you, Manu took him to school on the key play of the game. Now, big picture takeaway from last night, I actually felt sorry for you being at this game. It was not a pleasure to watch this game. I was obviously rooting for the Spurs. I thought they were lucky to win this game. I thought it was interesting that Popovich yelled at them at one point, and they showed it on TV. I don't know if you saw it, Stephen A.
Yeah, I did.
He said they're treating this like a playoff game, meaning the fans and the announcers and all the theatrics that are going on, all the extracurriculars. And he said, and you guys are letting them treat this like a playoff game. And I thought the Spurs weren't really into the game until maybe the final minute of the game. Far more defense from both teams than offense from both teams. But let's get to LeBron. I'm with you, not an end-of-the-world game for LeBron James. On the other hand, I certainly can't give him a pass for what happened over the final couple of minutes of the game. And I must admit to you, Mr. Smith, the end of that game rather painfully reminded me of the end of that fateful Game 6. Remember 2 years ago, Miami versus the Spurs at Miami? That game?
Yes.
Remember what happened down the stretch of that game when LeBron James managed to turn it over 3 shocking times in the final 3 minutes and 18 seconds? Twice he turned it over, LeBron did, in that Game 6 in the last 40 seconds. But what happened that night? He had Ray Allen to take him off the hook and bail him out. Maybe later this year, you never know, he might have Ray Allen again to help him out. But last night, it was all LeBron James. And obviously, his unforced error of a turnover ended up ending the basketball game a little bit prematurely for me. I do want to compliment Mr. James, King James, on immediately raising his hand and taking the blame. He took it, obviously, in the locker room with the media, but he immediately took blame on the basketball court by raising his hand. I really appreciated that because that was on LeBron, and he knew it. Now, what's my big picture takeaway of the the last sequence. You know, it's interesting to me. LeBron obviously over time has had trouble closing games. I think going forward, the Cavaliers will find LeBron will accept that Kyrie Irving must be the closer for this team. As a guy rooting for the Spurs last night, I was happy the ball wound up in LeBron's hand as the clock ticked down the last 8 seconds instead of Kyrie's hands. Because, Stephen A., you know this as well as I do, Kyrie Irving is a bad young man. He made really 4 shots last night. He made 3 out of 4 threes that were just unguardable because he was basically guarded a couple of times on the threes by Corey Joseph, and he just flat out willed the ball in the basket. So I was happy not to see Kyrie with the ball dribbling it up the floor, because if I got to bet on somebody to make a 3 to beat the Spurs, last second shot, it would be Kyrie Irving, not LeBron James. I was disappointed we didn't get to see what LeBron would have done. He said in his post-game sound that we just saw or heard that he was thinking about taking the ball to the basket. His history is not to take the ball to the basket in that situation. His history would have been to pull up and take a 3. Would he have made the 3 to win the game? I would doubt that. But I wanted to see it, so I was disappointed that we didn't get to see it. But last quick point before I hand it back to you, I got to give credit to Manu Ginobili. He did blow that last free throw, which I thought he should have made, and yet he made a mad dash of a run at LeBron, and he disrupted him. He forced LeBron. I don't know if he had to dribble behind his back, but he did. And then when he reversed the ball, he somehow went to his left hand, which I didn't understand, and just lost the handle. But I think Manu had something to do with that, because you and I both know Manu has done that to a lot of guys over time. He's as disruptive a defender as you will find in the league, just an irritant, and he irritated LeBron into a turnover that basically ended the game.
Well, the one thing for me, Skip, and listen, I want to be careful about this, because David Blatt may end up being a sensational coach on the NBA level, and I'm certainly not trying to call him out. I understand that he's a EuroLeague star. He coached the 2012 Russian national team to a bronze medal in the Olympics. I get all of that. We know that he's been a big-time coach in Europe for 20 years, learned under Pete Carroll at Princeton. Really emphasizes spacing and ball movement and all of these things. Well, I've been looking for that for these first 10 games with the Cleveland Cavaliers, and I got to be honest with you, I haven't seen it. I haven't seen much of it, and that's a concern of mine. I mean, when I look at LeBron James, LeBron James dribbled the ball up the court, put it behind his back, got stripped. Okay, and ultimately lost control of the ball and then turned it over, and Manu Ginobili ends up walking away with it in the game. But why did LeBron James have to try to dribble the ball the length of the court? Because there were no timeouts left. Yep. Because Blatt had used all 3 of his timeouts, and they were gone. While Popovich saved one for his. I'm thinking about the NBA game, the NBA level, and some of the things that you just have to know better than doing. And right now, I'm keeping my eyes on it. You got to remember, Cleveland is a very, very shaky situation in this respect. Skip, David Blatt is your coach. He's your head coach. It came down to him and essentially Tyronn Lue and Alvin Gentry. Alvin Gentry is now an assistant to Golden State, departing from the Clippers to work with Steve Kerr, his old friend. Tyronn Lue is the associate head coach and the highest paid assistant coach in the game right now at approximately $1.4 million. Well, that was the guy that was number 2 on the list to be the head coach before you ultimately decided to go with Blatt. So I'm not sure that was Blatt's decision, more so than it was David Griffin's decision, the GM for the Cleveland Cavaliers. You look at all of this stuff going on. Again, I'm not trying to imply any kind of acrimony or anything that's going on. I'm simply saying that there are question marks about this coaching staff, particularly this head coach, and what they can bring to the table out of these guys. I don't know the answer to that question. I certainly don't want to cast aspersions on Mr. Blatt, and certainly not Tyronn Lue, who's been coaching under Doc Rivers all of these years, who I think is destined to be a head coach in the near future, and I think he'll be a damn good one. I'm simply saying that you have LeBron James with the Kevin Love, with the Kyrie Irving and whatever, and I'm looking at these guys, the spacing isn't there, the ball movement doesn't appear to be there, the kind of things that we were looking for from this quote-unquote innovative offensive basketball mind on the sidelines for the Cleveland Cavaliers. I haven't seen it yet. And I think that plays a role into why this team is 5-5, because on far too many occasions than we would have desired to see, we have seen these guys going one-on-one. The next time I see Kevin Love take a layup will be the first time I've seen it this season, because all I see him doing is launching shots. He's shooting about 38% from the field. He's shooting about 35% from three-point range. This is not the Kevin Love that we know. It's not that impressive. And he wasn't that impressive last night. And I don't know, with the offensive repertoire that he has at his disposal, if that's on him. I'm starting to wonder if it's not on the coach and the system that he is playing in. And that is a very big deal, Skip, because remember, Kevin Love, free agency beckons this coming summer. He's going to be looking for his money. Now, maybe there's some tacit agreement that we're going to take care of you and give you a max deal. Maybe. Maybe not. Maybe LeBron James is looking forward to playing under Blatt for years to come. Maybe LeBron James is going to say, we need some more experience on that bench. We don't know what's going on. We don't know what's going to happen. But there's a lot of question marks. It's just 10 games.
Okay.
So please don't get me wrong. But there are questions.
I get everything you just said. Brian Windhorst even brought up the point in his piece this morning that LeBron James played only 34 minutes. Well, obviously, just yesterday, LeBron complained about, hey, I need my minutes reduced. So this new coach is damned if he does, damned if he doesn't. LeBron played fewer minutes last night than Tim Duncan, Boris Diaw, and Kawhi Leonard. Well, is that what LeBron wanted or not? LeBron basically runs the show, to me, as the unofficial coach, and I think you could call him the unofficial general manager. But I'm going to remind you, as Brian Windhorst also pointed out, after LeBron signed with the Cleveland Cavaliers, how long was it before he even chose to meet the new head coach?
More than a month.
A month? Really? What does that tell you? That it tells me that LeBron deemed David Blatt irrelevant to the whole process. LeBron was coming home. LeBron was going, I think he knew he had a real shot to pair up with both Kevin Love and Kyrie, and the coach did not matter to him. So it can't matter now if it didn't matter to begin with.